Miami beat Florida State 29-22 at the game I was at. This was fueled by Quick Trip. That's how we got down there. That's how we got back. It was a two-chally game, though, that was masquerading as a one-possession game. If you look at the final there, Miami was favored by 4.5. They won by 6. That tracks. So we got about the game we expected, right? No, we did not. There's no team in the country that looks like Miami, guys. Now, that stadium was unbelievable. That's us showing up. Amazing. I mean, in terms of in-game tradition, I don't really think that Doak Campbell and Florida State take a back seat. If you've never been down there, just please make a trip down there at least once. Get you a good night game, preferably with Miami in town. Unbelievable. But as for the game itself, standing field level, because I hadn't seen Miami in person this year in a game, they're a different team than anyone. I have seen Ohio State and Texas in person this year. I have seen Bama in person. I've seen Georgia in person. I've seen Michigan in person. There is no team that looks like Miami. There is no team that big and that fast and that physical and that aggressive as Miami. Nowhere. I don't know if they'll win their conference. I don't know if they'll win their national championship. I don't know what they'll win. I just know they won yesterday, and I know they have what I would affectionately refer to as creatures all over the place. And there were a lot of times last night, if you watched Florida State, you watched Tommy Castellanos specifically, Tommy Castellanos knows his athletic profile. He knows what he's capable of. The way you can always tell a guy's on the field with a different caliber of athlete is when they do things comfortably because they think they have time to do them. And then they just, boom, space closes, ground closes, and they're almost shocked. They're like, wait a second. I thought I had room. I thought I had space. I thought I had an angle. You do 11 other Saturdays of the year. You just didn't. You just didn't hear, man. And it's not your fault. It's not your fault. They were created in a different lab than you. I don't know what else to say. So it was a weird game because Miami, it felt like they dominated, and then the box score says, so did my eyeballs lie? Does the box score lie? Because best I can tell, we ended the third quarter, Miami's up 28-3, and yet they got outgained in the game. They got outrushed. Third and fourth down, edge Florida State. The turnover game went the other way, and that's a lot of what decided this. Miami had 13 penalties for 114 yards. So the box score is lying. We should just throw it in the trash. The box score lied here. It's hard. I'll tell you one thing I picked up on is Miami got to a certain spot. Their fan base will tell you this, and they thought they throttled back. And they did because they knew they had the game in hand. Then it got a little too close for comfort late, and you try and crank the car back up, and you realize, it needs a little while. I mean, Shannon Dawson's sitting there calling a good game. They're not running the ball worth anything because Florida State's dictating with numbers that they're not going to let them. So they're throwing the ball. Carson Beck's 20 of 27, 241 through the air, 4 touchdowns. Malachi Toney is going off. C.J. Daniels is going off. And then they don't need to anymore. And Shannon Dawson, he can back off the accelerator a little bit. Some would call that going conservative. They would call it taking the game out of the doubt column and into the win column, and then all of a sudden, it's not in the win column, or maybe it's not. And you try and crank it back up, and it's hard to crank it back up. It turns out they didn't need it. So Miami wins it. Malachi Toney's a freak. Like, not since, what was that movie? Not since Rachel Lee Cook took those glasses off, and She's All That, has someone so emphatically announced their arrival to the world as Malachi Toney has so far this year. Just incredible. 7 catches last night, 107, 2 scores. C.J. Daniels, 578, 2 scores. You remember when A&M went up to Notre Dame and they won a shootout. And then A&M came home and they won a slugfest against Auburn. I think that about Miami. I thought they're versatile enough. We call those toolbox teams, meaning they got enough tools in the toolbox to solve any problem. You need to score 45? I can score 45. You need to hold someone to under 13? I can hold someone to under 13. Miami feels like that kind of team. The difference is A&M had already had to prove it. And Miami still really hadn't had to win a shootout, but man, they've emphatically proved that they got one half, and I do think they have the other half if and when they need it. Hadn't seen them on the road yet. Okay, we've seen them on the road now. So Miami is a dangerous team. I'll talk more about them in a second because that doesn't guarantee anything. A lot of people are making irresponsible predictions about Miami right now. There's no guarantees here. There's no guarantees. Ohio State won the whole thing last year, and they're playing lights out. There's no guarantees for them. Miami hadn't won anything yet, so there's especially no guarantee for them. This is all new for them, at least this version of Miami. More on them in a second. Florida State's at a crossroads right now. It's been a wild first month and a half. When you beat Bama, and I tell you, you're still going to be a 2-loss team by the time you play Pitt. You're like, what? Yeah, I would have been too. So we'll get back to the video 1 second. Do me one quick favor. Look down. Make sure you're subscribed. Most of you are. If you're not, please do so. It's the way we keep the channel free, we keep the videos coming, and we get to do college football year-round as God intended. All right, as promised, back to the video. We have terms. We try and have as much unique language on the show as possible. One of them that we use every now and then is townhouse teams. Townhouse teams, if you understand the shape of a townhouse, and trust me, I didn't growing up, because that's Harris County, Georgia. Not many townhouses. Outhouses, yes. Townhouses, no. Townhouses, though, are very tall. There's a high ceiling, there's a low floor. And that is kind of how Florida State profiles. And you saw the roof in week 1 against Alabama. You saw, if not the floor, pretty close to it against Virginia. And yesterday, Miami's tough, man. They're going to embarrass a lot of people probably this year. But you saw Tommy Castellano's total wild card. It's either 10 or it's trash. He's not trash. The result can be. There's very little in between with Tommy Castellanos. And 3 of their 5 games now, he's been their leading rusher. And so there's just a disproportionate amount of the workload that's on him. And he's not a great player. He has ceiling. He has peaks where he can touch greatness very, very briefly, but consistently he's not going to be that. And, I mean, their longest pass play was 30 yards yesterday. And that was really their shot, and that's Malzahn's shot of sucking you in with that ground game, attacking you on the perimeter, which, by the way, it was huge. Miami held them to 3 on that opening drive because once you get to sink your teeth in, I mean, we've seen Saban do it to him. We've seen Kirby do it to him when he was at Auburn, and now we saw Corey Heatherman do it to him. Once you get them figured out, now that's why it's important for Malzahn offenses to strike early. So they had 1 pass play, 30 yards, I think it was. Miami had 4 of 40+. And that was another very important aspect of this game that Miami won. So, look, seasons are very long. Very long. And that's why early in the year, when a team looks as good as Miami does, I'm always careful. Just like when Florida State looked like they did week 1. I mean, half the folks out there were still convinced Florida State was terrible. No, they weren't terrible. We knew that after week 1. But there's this thought that, all right, what we saw in week 1, since we have no other sample size, or we have no other sample in the size because it's 1 game, that's all we have to go on. So we'll just assume that you are what we saw in week 1. That's how people lose a lot of money betting on week 2, by the way. Both ways. Terrible teams, great teams. You don't have that yet. You got one little dot in the cluster so far. So now we got a few more for each team. And Miami is about as good a body of work as anyone right now. But Miami's biggest threat's Miami. And I don't mean that disrespectfully, like other teams couldn't beat them. But I do think they're better than every other team they're going to play. But that's if they're fully healthy, which they are right now. There's no guarantee they will be. So that's part 1 of the unknown. Part 2 of the unknown is you got a bunch of guys there that haven't tasted high-end success. Now, that makes them hungry, but it also makes you prone to complacency if you're not careful. And the third part, which I'll continue to say is the most dangerous part for Miami, Bradley, do me a favor, throw their schedule back up. There are a lot of teams out there that play a really difficult schedule. And they're going to face teams that are their equal, talent-wise. Miami's not. The rest of the way, if Miami loses, it will be a fairly big upset, and they will have lost to an inferior roster. That sounds like a good thing. Oh, it is a good thing. It means you got a really navigable path. Here's what could be the bad part, and this is Miami controls this. You either stay razor sharp and hold yourself to a standard every week, despite the fact that you don't really need to win that week, or you let yourself slip a little bit. Because I'm going to be completely straight with you guys. When Stanford comes to town on October 25th, Miami's C-plus effort is plenty good enough to win that. How do you carry yourself that week? Do you carry yourself at an A-plus standard no matter the opponent on Saturday? Or do you let human nature habits creep in? No, and it won't matter. Because it won't matter. Against Stanford, it won't matter. But against Oregon in the second round of the playoff, it will matter. And if bad habits crept in and got crystallized during that stretch where you're favored by double digits every weekend because you weren't mature enough to handle your business and hold yourself to a standard, that's what can bite Miami. And you won't really know it until it comes time for them to play in a championship situation in Charlotte or in the playoff. They will be a playoff team. I got no doubt about that. What do they do when they get there? I watched Oregon lock down the 1 seed and get smoked in round 1 last year. So I don't frankly care what happens in the regular season. Once we get, that's a whole second season. And once we get there, which they don't need to be thinking about right now, it's a whole second season. What kind of habits have you allowed to creep in? That's literally my biggest concern with Miami right now. That and just health, which I worry about for everyone.